Today I'm taking you to Tucker's Grove Camp Meeting in Iron Station, North Carolina, a historic gathering space founded in 1874 that served as a safe haven for African Americans in years following the Civil War. This sacred ground has hosted generations of families for worship, fellowship, and cultural preservation. I had the honor of meeting with Reverend Caldwell of Tucker's Grove Church, who gave me an insightful tour and shared the powerful history and traditions that continue to thrive here. Make sure to subscribe and share this video to help amplify underrepresented stories and keep this important history alive. Let's dive into the legacy of Tucker's Grove. If you look around me, these are not apartment complexes or any of that. This is what's called a campground. And there were many of these throughout the South post-emancipation. And I'm here with Pastor Caldwell, who is the pastor at Tucker's Grove AME?
No, church. Because we disaffiliated from the United Methodist Church.
Okay, so y'all separated.
Yeah, we separated.
Okay, you separated from, and he's going to give us some great history here about the campground, and we'll also discuss some of his own family history in Newberry, South Carolina. So thank you for joining, brother.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Most definitely.
Good.
I met this brother a couple of weeks ago at an event at another campground, which was, I want to say, built in 1840s,
Probably so,
if I remember right.
Yeah.
But it was a quote unquote white campground,
right,
for that church affiliation.
Right.
And so, to my understanding, this is a spinoff from the formerly enslaved folks that were once a part of that, right?
Exactly.
And so, can you tell us where we're at and the importance of this place, and we'll walk around and show people the grounds.
Okay. Well, this particular spot is very important to many people for their ancestry, for their cultural understanding of who they are. Normally, they meet in August. They normally meet the Thursday before the third Sunday. That's when it opened up. I walk around and with some other pastors and individuals from the community, and we bless the campground.
Okay.
It has to be an activity that starts before they are officially open and before vendors can come and be a part of it. And then it culminates on the fourth Sunday, so it actually is 10 days.
Okay.
So that third Sunday is called Little Sunday, and that fourth Sunday is called Big Sunday. And each night they have preachers to come in, choirs, churches. There's a lot of activities. The children are still out of school, but then school starts early and all, and they have to go back. But some of the people who come actually stay in these tents for that length of time, about 10 days.
Okay.
And I became acquainted when I became the pastor of Tucker's Grove United Methodist Church, because the campground is named after Tucker's Grove. And so Tucker's Grove United Methodist Church was very much a significant part of the campground. Many of my members have what they call these tents.
Yes.
And I had to kind of distinguish between tents and shacks, because they look like shacks to me, but but people know they're tents. So I accept what they say. And most of them on this side have running water. Some of them have restrooms. Some of them don't. Some of them use, they rent porta-johns during that camp season. And then they use that, but they come. Okay. And it was primarily set for religious purposes and to win souls to Christ. Now, honestly, other activities went on. Yeah, it was none. Was not of such. But
on days other than the Sabbath, right?
Yeah. You went on the Sabbath at night. They had around the crowd. But the intention were to have them to come and together, because some of them hadn't seen each other in a long time.
Sure, it's a big family reunion.
Big family reunion. Many people from up north come, and COVID kind of stopped it after COVID, post-COVID. The grounds were full again. Yeah.
Getting back to the traditions.
Yeah.
Now, do you mind if we walk a little bit?
No, that's fine.
So, you and I were talking about Newberry, South Carolina, and that's where your folks are from.
Absolutely.
Tell me about your childhood growing up, church affiliations, as well as when did history become a thing for you?
Okay. I have always been interested in history from a child, because I wanted to be a history major. Okay. And that was during the time when we had a teacher in Newberry named Miss Louise H. Burt. She taught 7th and 8th grade history. And when we had the South Carolina history book. And when we come in, she had so many questions. It was a huge classroom and had about 4 blackboards. And she would cover them up. And the first thing you came in, you had about 100 questions that you had to answer. And she based that on if you read your the chapter or not. So that became an interest to me, and I was interested somewhat in American history, and then I became interested in my family history
Okay.
because I'm an only child.
Okay.
My mother and is one of two, both of them deceased. My grandmother came out of a family of 14.
Were they sharecropping families?
Well, and they probably were, but they never discussed that. I know my grandmom did domestic work. She was it was very important for her to send my mother to school to graduate. My mother went to Virginia Virginia State University and graduated. From there, my uncle went into the military, and he actually went to school in Voorhees, South Carolina, Voorhees College in Denmark.
Okay.
But knowing that there were so many of them, and then many of them died, I would listen to my grandmother's stories about her family, and I suppose I listened more attentively than the others, because right now some of them call me about history. Now, I'm not as old as some of them, but they didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
Now that was my grandmother's mother and father, but on my father's side, they the one came out of Newberry. My grandmother, those came out of Saluda, the very next county.
Okay. Well, I see that and thanks for providing us with context about your own personal journey as it relates to history. So there is a stone that's over here at the entrance
Yeah.
of the structure that's here. So talk to us about this campground. 1873, the sign says, is when it was established.
Okay.
Can you give us some of the history in which why this campground had to be formed? Perhaps if you know any of the names of the people who may have started it, or the surnames of families that are within the community,
Okay.
that'd be great.
Okay. Now I'm very, very limited.
Okay.
Because I only been here 7 years.
Okay.
And when I came into this setting. I had never really involved myself in a camp meeting per se. Down in my home area, we had what we say revival meetings, but it was inside the church house, and it would last a week. When I came here, some of them had revivals, but they also had this camp meeting. And again, I reiterate this: there was an idea of them coming together, not being able to see each other, for a long period of time. I think that the harvest was over. That's why they had it as late as they did.
Yeah.
And they come and they put these souvenirs, these statues up for commemoration. I think outside on Highway 73, it has Tucker Grove camp meeting. You said 1873. I thought it said 1874.
Yeah, I think it said 73.
Okay.
Or maybe 74.
Yeah,
I may be wrong as well.
Yeah, and so everything was shared with me, because I was curious like you, how did this come about? Then I found out in the other parts of the country, like down in Chester, that was
There's a couple of them in South Carolina.
Down the low part, Shady Grove.
Yep.
And those were huge ones, and they would have a lot of vendors and things. And some of them was even later. They weren't not necessarily all in August. Some of them was in September. I think some of them was in October. So again, I don't have a lot, but I do the surnames that I know that was here: the Wingates, the Ross, the Coverdens, the Gregorys, the Nixons, McLeans, Surratt, Durs.
Okay.
Trying to think of some other names. Smith.
Johnson.
Johnson, definitely Johnson. Yeah, definitely Johnson.
I met a Johnson
Yeah,
lady here
yeah.
once.
And matter of fact, they live right across Bible Family Life Center on the other side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you look at these structures, for somebody that may be just driving by, may be looking like, oh, well, these are some ragtag huts that people just put together. But for me, I'm looking at it as architecture. I'm looking at it as preservation, culture, and originality, and not necessarily looking to look past the past and conform to what's in now, right?
Yeah,
like there's something deeper by being in this space. So for you, when you come into these spaces, being a lover of history, How do you view these?
Well, I view this as probably a place, a haven for them to be free.
Okay.
You know, to not be so conformed to society rules and regulations that was always, in a sense, against the black man or the black woman. And here they could kind of come and be themselves without any type of conformality when it came to actually doing the structure. Now, one of the things, too, I meant to mention that any food vendors that come, they have to go through the Department of Health in order to get certified license because they have to make sure they have running water
Right.
and everything. Don't want to poison or contaminate anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I see this as being an opportunity for them to come 10 days out of the year just to remember when they was growing up, because many of them grew up at camp meeting.
Yes.
They met friends at camp meeting. They got engaged at camp meeting, so it had a lot of significance to them.
Most definitely. And about how many homes or tents
I
is what
think
you
I
call
think
them
it's over
out
100.
here?
I think it's over 100.
Yeah.
Some of them, and
And I see their number too.
yeah, they numbered, and
And some
then
people's families' names are on
right,
them as
some of them
well.
on it, and some of them put more vested interest in others. You know, they come just like this one here, Lewis McLean's mother.
Mm-hmm.
Those you can only go
The
so
two-story
wide.
one?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can only go so wide, but you can always go up.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
and so that's one of the rules and regulations. And then, from what I gather, that the tent, if somebody passes, is left to a designated person in the family. If not, and if people do not pay their rent
Mm-hmm.
for the year after a while, it goes back up under the auspices of the trustees of the campground, and they may take control over it.
So this is a full-blown operation
Yeah,
for people that
yeah.
aren't
The
familiar with
trustees
it.
normally meet all during the year. You know,
Okay.
they'll come out soon and cut the grass and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, you know, they got a grant from the Duke to try to do some work here to put some of that little crushed rocks and things there, and to maintain uh, the roofing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of that money probably has been used up now over the years.
Sure.
So, you know, they took pride in it.
So we're talking only a few years after the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously this ground was once inhabited and terrained by formerly enslaved
Sure,
humans, right?
sure.
What are some of the stories that have been passed down to you from members here or people who attend Campground that discuss those journeys of people that were formerly enslaved that made this happen?
Well, many of them said that, again, it was an opportunity for them to be from up under that strict jurisdiction, that they kind of like have self-governing. I think that the property was donated through this family, the Tuckers,
Yep.
who was named after, and mainly because they didn't want them to worship with them over at Rock Spring. So that was the intention behind, but they felt as though they needed a place, and so they appreciate that. And even now, Tuckers Grove campground, the people will go to Rock Spring doing camp meeting, and some of the Rock Spring people will
Come over
come here.
And for clarity, Rock Springs is the white
It's a white one, yeah,
campground.
the place that you and I met.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that continuity from a relationship standpoint is still intact.
It's still intact. I think it has grown from
That's
what I
good.
gather, yeah. And rightly so, because they recognize the need
Mm-hmm.
to have that connection and to have that type of communication between the two. Of course, during camp meeting, they have law enforcement presence,
Okay.
because everybody not going to be act civilized or in character. They're going to act out, and we don't want anybody to get hurt. I mean, I've heard stories back in the day. There was a lot of carousing going on, drinking. People, they could smell the young folks doing,
Yeah.
pot or whatever during that time, and then they get rowdy and they start fighting. So they had to have some kind of way to control.
Most definitely.
But I have many members in my church who have more in depth.
Yeah.
And I'll be glad to introduce you to some of them.
Yeah, most definitely. I would love that for
Mhm.
sure. Now, being that your church that you pastor is right across the
Mm-hmm.
street. Do you lead service here?
Yeah, well, several. That initially when I came, there was 6 churches
Okay.
that was involved in it. That was
So
Bavard.
it's not just singular to the
No,
church that you
no.
pastor.
For
Okay.
understand the trustees, when it was given, it was given to the trustees of the campground,
Mhm.
and they had trustees from the campground from each church. Initially, when I came, there was 6 churches. That was Bavard United Methodist Church.
Yep. And that's right
That
next to Rock
Rock
Springs.
Springs,
Yes.
right, and it's now since closed. That was, of course, Tucker's Grove. That was Ebenezer United Methodist Church. That was St. James United Methodist Church. Rock Hill United Methodist Church was right down over on Plank Road.
Okay.
And then, of course, I name all of them: Tucker's, Brevard, Rock Hill, Ebenezer, um, St. James, and then Gold Hill Baptist Church.
Okay.
Gold
So
Hill was,
multiple different congregations and denominations
yeah.
were able to be up under the same
Oh yeah,
place.
because of the family relationship, we always invited different speakers to come in during the week,
Nice.
and it could be Baptist, Holiness, they could be Pentecostal, they could be Presbyterian, anyone that we thought that could deliver a powerful word, the gospel, and also good singing.
Right.
But those 6 churches was the initial churches when I came here. As I said, Brevard is closed. And now, and Gold Hill was the only Baptist church that was a part of it. The pastors were very active for whatever reason, because it was named after Tucker's Grove. Tucker Grove pastor was always considered, quote unquote, the spiritual advisor. And
Would he always lead the prayer prior to everything to get started, or did y'all Debbie that out?
we did it out. You know, like for example, if it's Monday night was Bavard, the pastor of Bavard would
Okay.
lead that. Tuesday night, whatever church, you know, that pastor would lead, and the advisor would be there in case if there was a little slack in time, and decided to they needed somebody to go ahead and get the service started.
Yeah.
And so, and I was told about that, and then thrust in the mix of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So the types of structures that we see, some of them are 1 story, some of them are 2 story. When things are live around here, provide us a depiction of what things will be like. Are people, hanging out on the porches? Are they bringing lawn chairs and are in the lawn? Is there music playing? Is it barbecuing?
Yeah.
What's the vibe like?
Well, no, the vibe usually on the weekend, people do that's what you said. Some of them may bring grills out and cook, but during the time that the service is going on, everything cease.
Yes.
Everybody does not. Everybody won't come to the up under the arbor for worship. Some of them will sit on their little area.
Okay.
And then, well, in order to support the revival, we had a finance committee that would go around and get an offering for some of them that was not up under the arbor.
Okay. And is that going to a fund to help the next
to maintain,
year, to maintain the grounds and everything?
to pay the bills even for the current year, because they have to rent porta johns, they have to rent different things, trash containers, which is costly, and nobody give the church unquote a break. You know, they're gonna charge whatever they're gonna charge.
Is there a plan to eventually, because I think at Shady Grove, they have a historical marker that's out, and there's a couple other places, and it's like in the middle of the campground. Do you all plan on potentially doing that?
I haven't heard that. The only thing I know is that they got the mark out front.
Yes.
And then they have this, and that's all I think they're gonna do. Now, all that land behind there belongs to the campground, so they're clearing some of that because parking is essential during camp meeting. People be parking and be crazy sometimes. They park, and then we have parking attendants trying to direct the parking.
Yeah.
In order that nobody will get blocked in, and to make sure that this area here, where we standing, is clear. They can only come in at a certain time on Big Sunday, bring their food and go back out.
Mm-hmm.
But they used to have cars all around them. When people cranked up the cars, then they couldn't hear the minister or the service. So
Yes.
they tried to remedy that by closing the gate at a certain time.
When people research this and they contact you, are you surprised about how many people are not necessarily aware of camp meeting?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, you know, it was basically in different areas, and if they grew up in it, they might taken the experience with them somewhere else
Yeah.
and shared it. But people always coming out here, you know, looking around, taking pictures. Dr. Minuet Floyd, I don't know if you heard that name or not.
Did that's a
She's a,
author? She wrote a
she wrote a book about
about
camp
him.
meeting,
Yeah.
and she's a professor at the University of South Carolina.
Okay.
So, I mean, that book is available, I think, on Amazon.
Okay.
And she has a lot of information about this campground and other campgrounds. She said that she came, so I come when she was a child with her father.
Yeah, I did read something online about her.
So
Yeah.
he had some kind of connection.
Yeah. Now, I see somebody has, and it's interesting the differences on how people constructed these as well as their artistic view. I see that someone has a Cowboys
Oh yeah, that's their football play.
symbol
Yeah.
on their, you know.
And unfortunately, you might see a redskin or still. I'm a Cowboy fan, so.
So you visit that one, I'm sure,
I'm
right?
partial, yeah. But I usually be up on this end.
Okay.
Because that's where a lot of my members, the Johnsons, the Coverdens, the Fridays,
Mm-hmm.
that's another name, Fridays.
Yeah.
Burdens, the Gregorys, and there's a whole lot of names, the Wingates, all of them. And then you got some tents behind on the back row. Yeah.
So you have some fans here to try to keep people as cool as possible because this occurs in August.
Oh yeah, the
And so it's
part
hot
of
as all get out.
Yeah. And they have exterminators to come to spray for insects, and of course, during August sometimes you see a lot of waltzes
Yeah.
flying around. So
Yeah.
they try to make it. This is called crush something,
Mm-hmm.
and they used to didn't have this, but this was supposed to keep down the dust.
Yes. Now, how do you all identify who is under the pavilion versus not? Like, is it for the elderly folks or folks who, you know, may not necessarily be as mobile? So who is chosen to kind of sit up in the front? Because, you know, in the traditional church, you got the deaconesses and deacons or what have you that may have prioritized seating, if you will. So how does that work here?
Well, whoever come, first serve.
Okay.
Okay. Younger people usually sit in the back. That's just part of who they are.
Yeah.
The older people come up front. When I first came, there was a lady. She was about 101. She would always come and sit in this area here. And then the other one was filed in behind her. And then the choirs, so you know, the choir stands are raised a little bit, and they would invite choirs to come. Tucker's Grove, we had 2 nights. We had Saturday night, and we had that Sunday that we was in charge of service. And so as I got older and wanted to share with other people, I invite other preachers to come in, you know, for that Saturday night and that Sunday morning. Yeah. Because I used to be here, you know, every night for camp meeting.
Okay.
And I could be kind of strenuous, 10 nights.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of time, yeah.
You know, I feel that sometimes people think that Black Americans, if you will, some people may think that we don't have a culture. And my whole thing is culture is shared throughout the globe. You know, the Creator provided us the opportunity to pick from this, pick from that, incorporate it, make our own, et cetera, et cetera. Do you feel like this is a fundamental culture in the Black community, or has become that since post-emancipation, that just a lot of people may not necessarily know about?
I agree. I think so. Everybody have their own perspective and viewpoint of history. To the people who have camp meetings, campgrounds in the area, that's very significant. But then again, like I said, in Newberry, where we didn't have any camp meeting, but they had revival, that was also significant. And they would support the various churches on those particular We used to call them big meeting Sundays. That's
Yes.
when it was kicked off. And they were, like I said, people would come, they would have basically 3 sermons, and they used to go the whole week.
Mm-hmm.
Then as time went, they went through a phase of having what called a one-day revival. And just having the one day, like people coming together for food, but then somebody said, that's not really a revival. So then they went back to 3 nights. I don't think many churches have gotten back to 5 nights.
Yeah.
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 But some of them look at, and on those Sundays, when they start revival, some of them call it homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of folks will come home on that particular Sunday and kick off the week. Yeah.
With everything that has transpired right now and which we're seeing, and I'm not going to hold you because I know you
Okay.
have to get ready to go. But with everything that has been transpiring as it relates to the attempts to erase
Mhm.
our history,
Mhm.
what is it that you would like for people to know about the camp meeting, as well as just our history in general, to take pride in it,
Yeah.
to advocate for it, to not be afraid to speak up, and to continue to fight, just like those previously, just like I'm sure yourself,
Right.
for our history to be included in the American
Right.
narrative.
I definitely would like for it to be included. I think what you're doing is important. I think our inefficiency over the years have been that we never put anything in writing. It was like an oral tradition, and if no one spoke of it, and at least I would hope there would be some kind of way that we could capture the mind of young people. They wanted to be interested in how their parents and their grandparents and other ancestry valued this, because they value it as an opportunity for them to have something of their own. One of the downsides of the camp meeting here is that they cannot get insurance on these tents because they're so easy to catch on fire.
Right.
And so you take a risk. If a fire break out, God forbid, and what happened at McKinsey and Ball Creek one time, it wiped out a lot of the tents.
Yeah.
I would want to advocate that they could get some type of insurance
Sure.
in order to, because people put money into
Most definitely.
into these tents in order they could be nice. And like I said, some of them have improved tremendously. I had a former DS. She was hoping that maybe the people would rent these tents out during various times of the year, and that the money could go back to the campground. But I don't think that went over as well. Yeah. But that would have been a great idea. Maybe the way they was presented, maybe not fully explain how it would work. Because sometimes people say, well, if I'm gonna rent my tent out there and I need that income myself. And as opposed to putting that money back into the campground to help
Sustain.
to sustain it and to preserve it.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything which you said is so important, especially, in the time that we're in right now, with just trying to make sure that we remain visible in other cultures as well, other melanated folks, communities, and staying.
I think we have to be
visible.
intentional about it. I think we have
Yeah.
to be intentional about, and so that's why I appreciate any documentation, and it needs to be shared with the churches, and the churches need to some kind of way within their own local church emphasize or share that history, because some of them still don't get it.
Yep, most definitely. Well, I know you have to get ready to go to an appointment. I'm gonna stick around here and
Okay,
grab
do
some more
that.
footage.
Feel free.
But do we know which tent is the oldest?
I don't have any idea. Now, Lewis McLean, who just recently was the chairman of the trustees, he stepped down.
Okay.
But I'd be glad to share that information with him. You
Yeah, I
can
would
reach
love
out
to
to
know.
him. Yeah.
I would love to know. Well, listen, y'all. Back up a little bit. This has been another episode. Again, I love doing these types of things, just as Pastor said, to capture and record this type of history because of the simple fact that it is being erased, right now, real time. When we see what's happening with libraries, when we see what's happening with archives, when we see what's happening with the museums, Black history as well as other folks' history is right in the crosshairs of a cultural war. And so I appreciate you for,
Well, thank you.
and he
you.
responded quick, y'all. We only met 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And here we are already exploring the ground. So I thank you for you sharing your family history.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Down in Newberry. I'll have to make a trip down there,
Yes,
as
yes.
well as what it is that you've come to know here at Tucker's Grove Campground. So listen, please make sure to subscribe and share if you like this type of content. And I greatly appreciate you for rocking with me thus far. Peace and blessings.
Blessings.